welcome to today's session. Our session is on exploiting eternal blue, and we will exploit eternal blue vulnerability practically. Okay. So here is a short description about me. I'm Rishad Istiak. I'm a freelance penetration tester. I was a full-time cybersecurity consultant in an organization, and I am also providing training to different platforms in my local students and also foreign students. And if you want to get connected with me, you can send me connection request in LinkedIn. And if I tell you about my education, I completed computer science and engineering from Stanford University. And currently I'm doing masters in information system security from Bangladesh University of Professionals. So let's look at the objectives. What is the objectives of today's webinar? Okay, so today we will learn about eternal blue. What is eternal blue? We will scan a machine, try to detect whether that machine is vulnerable to eternal blue or not. And if eternal blue vulnerability exists, then we will exploit that vulnerability practically. Okay. And finally, we will talk about how to mitigate that vulnerability. So our session is basically two parts. One part is theoretical and another part is practical. Okay. At first, I will show you all the slides and theoretical stuffs. Then I will show you practical. 20 members. So what is eternal blue? Eternal blue is a vulnerability that is also known as MS17010. Okay. It was first found in 2017 in the SMB version 1. So SMB is a protocol. Okay. That is mainly used in Windows computer. So SMB, what is SMB? SMB, the full form of SMB is server message block. That is a protocol that is used to share files, printers, other resources within a network. Okay. So when this vulnerability was first found in the year 2017, the attacker exploited SMB version 1 and could able to execute remote code in the system that is using SMB version 1. And this vulnerability was used in a ransomware attack that is also now known as WannaCry. I think you all have heard about this WannaCry. So lab setup, I have already set up my lab. So if you want to set up your lab, you will have to download Kali Linux parrot operating system or any Linux based operating system, okay, that you will use as an attacker machine. And then you will need a victim machine. You can create account in TryHackMe. There is a room called Glue that is vulnerable to eternal blue, or you can download any Windows operating system in the VM and can enable SMB version 1 and try to exploit. Okay. But if you need, I'll share it with you. I have already configured one Windows machine that is vulnerable to SMB version 1. So if you guys want, then I can share it. There is a channel in the security Discord group for our today's webinar. Okay, I'll share the vulnerable VM link there. Okay, so first of all, we will have to detect the vulnerability. We'll have to check the system whether that is vulnerable to eternal blue or not. Okay, So we can do it in different way, like we can use nmap. So nmap is a network mapper or network scanning tool. You see in the screenshot. Okay, we have used nmap and an nmap script called smb-var ms17010. So that is an nmap script to detect whether a machine that is running SMB is vulnerable to eternal blue or not. Okay, so in the screenshot you can see a red mark. So you can see the machine is vulnerable. Okay, so we can detect whether a machine is vulnerable to uh, eternal blue or not using this nmap script. We can also use metasploit to detect whether a machine is vulnerable to eternal blue or not. So Metasploit is a framework that contains different exploits. Okay, you can use those exploits to gain access to any system or to gather information about a system. Okay, so here you can see the third one, ID number 3, that module. Auxiliary slash scanner slash SMB slash SMB MS17010. So this module can be used to detect whether a target machine is vulnerable to SMB or not. We are doing the same thing that we did with NMAP. Okay, we are detecting whether a system is vulnerable or not. So what you need to do is you will have to use this exploit. So the command is use and then the module name. Okay, and then we have set the rhost. Rhost means the remote host or the target machine that we are attacking. Okay, and finally, when the remote, when we have supplied the IP address of the remote machine, we have run the exploit and we have seen that host is likely vulnerable to MS17010. Okay, so this is how we can detect whether a machine is vulnerable to eternal blue or not. Okay, so our discovery phase is done. We know that the system is vulnerable. So now we will try to gain access to the system, exploiting that vulnerability. And for exploiting, we will use Metasploit. Okay, so Metasploit has an exploit called MS17010. Look at the previous one. That was starting with auxiliary. You can see some are starting with exploit and some are starting with auxiliary. So the one that is starting with exploit means you can gain access or exploit the system using those modules. Okay, but the one that is starting with auxiliary, those are some sorts of scanners too. Okay, you can scan or gather some sort of information about the target using the auxiliary modules. So here we are using exploit slash windows slash smb slash ms17010 eternal blue. So exploit means this is an exploit. This will give us some sort of shell, or this will give us access to the remote machine. Windows means this will perform on Windows machine on the SMB protocol. Okay, and the vulnerability is eternal blue. So how you can use it? You will have to set the rhost, remote host. You will have to supply the remote host, and then you can exploit the system using this module. Okay. So finally, mitigation. So we have exploited the system. So when we have found that the system is vulnerable or the system is exploitable, then what will be our task? We'll have to ensure that we can put some sort of patching, like we can do some updates in the system, like SMB version was is vulnerable to eternal blue. So what we can do, we can update, right? We can currently the SMB version is SMB 3.1.1. So always try to use the latest version of the services. Okay. And also, you can see if you go to the Microsoft official website, you will see that there are many patches available for different vulnerabilities. Try to install those patches in the system. You can install antivirus in the system, um, and also try to give least privilege. Okay, don't give everyone read, write, and execute permission. Okay, make some layers of users and give them some specific permissions.